Hello everyone, it is I, Veritas, and it looks like our good old pal Vaush didn't learn his lesson last time, so now I have returned once again to lay down the truth before him. In the video I'm commenting over today, Vaush expresses his criticisms and concerns he has regarding the way in which femboys are treated within the discourse. As you can tell, I found some of the crap he said kind of laughable and retarded, so let's get into it.
What do you think of muscular anime boys? I don't care for them. I generally don't like how anime depicts masculine character traits. I think that anime and its aesthetic stylings tend to be better for making attractive feminine characteristics, but not so much masculine characteristics.
Well, femininity is more attractive than masculinity, so I don't really see a problem with that.
Vaush hates free. Gale, would you call the boys in free masculine?
Vaush, would you call the boys in free feminine? Because looking at these designs, I don't necessarily see that many characteristics I would associate with femininity. They just look like young hairless men. This is really what I don't like about this line of thinking. What appears to be happening is that Vaush is conflating being feminine with being not masculine, which are not necessarily the same thing, and it honestly leads to a lot of unnecessary criticisms against more androgynous presenting men within fiction.
Like, most guys past and even in the later bits of high school are going to have visible facial hair. But you see not so much as stubble on a lot of these guys, because everyone looks like a woman.
Vaush, did you forget that shaving exists?
Speaking of feeling comfortable making people attractive, you know, not that I would call him particularly masculine, but Alucard from the goddamn show. Yeah, I don't know if he fits in the masculine bit. He certainly does. Alucard, not so much.
Vaush, please explain to me why Alucard meets your arbitrary requirements for being a realistic feminine man and not the other characters, like, let's say, the boys in Free? Like, where's the line?
No, Alucard is a femme man, okay? Understand this. I actually appreciate that, because usually in animation, okay, this is a shitty PNG clip out, hence the pixelization at the edge here. I appreciate that, because usually when you have guys with feminine characteristics, they're like tiny, like, they're literally just look like girls in anime. He doesn't at all. He just looks like a femme man. I respect this. You know what I mean, right? It's one of the great lies of femboy representation online, both in pornographic and non-pornographic characteristics. It's that so often it's like, yeah, I'm gonna draw a femboy, and then they just draw a girl.
So, you have clearly never seen a femboy before. Believe it or not, Vaush, we have the technology and the HRT to make some drastic effects on the way a person looks. For example, here's a picture of a femboy I found on Google Images. If you walked up to your average Joe and asked them if this was a boy or a girl, do you seriously think they would say boy? Of course not, because that would be stupid. Seriously, Vaush, try this yourself. Go look at any picture of a femboy on the internet. You're not going to think to yourself, ah yes, these are clearly just regular men with some feminine characteristics, at least when you go by intuition.
I mean, if you wanna draw someone who's just a girl and they have a penis, you draw a trans girl. It's fine. It's great. You know, great, good.
I love how Vaush just casually mentions the existence of trans women as an alternative to the so-called unrealistic hyper-feminine boy, when in reality the existence of trans women actually disproves his claim that femboys can't look like girls. For example, here's a picture of a trans girl I found on Google Images. Now Vaush, please explain to me why it is possible and realistic for a woman who was born looking like this to end up looking like this, but it is impossible or realistic for a GNC boy to look just like a girl?
But not so much like femboy. It gives feminine men unrealistic beauty standards that are hard to achieve. Yeah, I think it can be a little bit shitty. Especially, it's like, you can see it with like the hip to waist ratio on some of these alleged femboys, you know.
Vaush, did you forget that surgery exists?
I don't know if they're all HRT femboys out here, but it's like, yeah, you know, here's the guy in this anime, and he's got like a 2-to-1 hip to waist, and it's like, okay, So are you like an HRT femboy?
Why are you purposefully making an exception for HRT femboys throughout this video? Is it because they prove your claims wrong?
In a lot of contexts, depicting femboys the way femboys actually look in real life is kind of rare, right? Like, even when you draw, like, sexualized women in media, you know, there are women out there with, like, big fucking tits and, like, hip to waist, whatever, you know, that's like it's an archetype that is represented in reality. Maybe exaggerated often in media, but yeah, it's a real thing. But then it's like, okay, and here's the archetypal femboy, and it's not physically possible without, like, boatloads of estrogen being injected directly into their eyeballs.
Yeah, but it's still possible, is it not? Again, we have the technology to make some super feminine boys, don't we not? Sure, it may take a lot of estrogen and surgery to do it, but it's still possible to do it.
Does anime think that femme men are just womanized men? I think a lot of it is just that, like, now that gender nonconformity has grown more common, both in media and in real life, and there are more feminine people who have penises, which is a primary draw for femboys in, like, a sexualized context, you know? I feel like there's a compensation for this by having, like, hyper feminine characteristics.
Okay, why is this a bad thing? Seriously, why is hyperfemininity bad? You're gonna have to provide reasoning for it, which you don't even do. You just go on a tangent over Futanari hentai for the remainder of this video. Anyway, that's all for today, and good night.